Thank you all for joining us here this morning. For the next 4 rounds, we'll be showing you, not just telling you, how the Veritas eDiscovery platform goes beyond Microsoft's advanced eDiscovery solution. Now, if you're joining us here this morning, at some point in time, you are involved in the eDiscovery workflow at your site. If you're involved in eDiscovery, you know about the EDRM workflow, and that's what I have displayed for you here. Throughout the remainder of the rounds, we'll be following the EDRM workflow in comparing the different steps in the EDRM workflow, how the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution does it, and how the Veritas eDiscovery platform goes beyond. Now, the very first step in the EDRM workflow is going to be on identification. Now, we map to that as our legal holds module. Now, here's some of the items that I'll be looking for inside the EDRM workflow as it relates to the legal hold notification. We'll be trying to identify potential sources of relevant information. That could be both custodians or people at the corporate site, as well as where electronically stored information might be held. We'll be talking about the legal hold notification system, the ability to be able to send a notice to custodians that they have a duty to preserve data. And that could differentiate between addressing a message to custodians of the data and addressing messages to the system administrators that manage different system tools in the corporate structure. Now, some of the legal technology considerations that we're thinking about inside of the identification phase of the EDRM workflow will be, is it scalable to go company-wide? Is there an iterative process that makes it defensible? Am I able to track my custodians' responses? The archaic way of doing legal holds was very difficult to have to follow up with custodians to know whether they had acknowledged their duty to preserve data. We want to see, are we able to go a level further, leverage some of the technology that we're using to ask questions to the custodians and allow for them to give us responses on where data might be held, at what time and date the matter may have been discussed. And then, of course, ease of use. We understand that the legal hold function is generally a legal function. It may not be for a non-technical audience. So let's look at some of the different considerations in both the advanced eDiscovery solution for Microsoft and Veritas's eDiscovery platform. So we'll begin by walking through the Microsoft 365 Advanced eDiscovery solution and what the workflow is for issuing legal holds to custodians. And then we'll follow up by introducing the Veritas eDiscovery platform and how we issue legal holds there. So you can see here I'm logged into the Microsoft 365 Compliance Center, and I'll go down the left pane here to the eDiscovery solutions, and we'll log into our Advanced eDiscovery. Now we have 2 cases created for us. We'll go into the EDP, the Office 365 case. And we come into our case home. Microsoft uses the word communications as the tool to communicate with with custodians that need to have legal holds issued to them. Now you can see here I've already issued a legal hold here. Let's take a look at it. Now, as I was walking through the legal hold, I'll mention some of the things that I encountered while setting it up. The required fields on the very first portion of the tool were both the name and the issuing officer. I'm currently logged in as Chris Germany. Now, the next section was for the defining of the portal content. I was very confused here as to what the portal content is. Is this the legal hold that's going to be issued, or am I going to be drafting and crafting the legal hold in a later section? The portal content did not make much sense to me. You can see here I put in some of my own language as well as the different linked fields that are available to you here at the top. One thing to point out is I didn't have any templates that I could leverage to issue my legal hold. That's not to say that you may not be able to save templates, but right off the bat, I'm noticing that I'm worried about my iterative process as to issuing legal holds to custodians. If I don't have templated language that I can always ascertain are going to be consistent with issuing legal holds, I'm worried as to whether I'll be able to use this process regularly. The next section was on editing the notifications that are going to be sent. We had the issuance, the reissue, and the release. You'll notice that all have the red asterisk, which means that they're all required. And when I came in to actually edit each one of these notifications, no templated language again. Required me to work from scratch to begin and give a subject line as well as the body. And I was also confused as to, is this the legal hold? Is this the notification that's going to go out to custodians? And that portal content maybe was for a portal that custodians log into? It was very confusing. You'll see here these other 2 sections, both reissue and release, also required language for me to type in, and I was getting a little frustrated. Now the next section was on setting reminders and escalations for our notifications, somewhat standard within legal hold notification systems, and a good tool for litigators and legal teams to leverage, as oftentimes custodians may not be responding to legal holds. So you have the reminder available to you to send to custodians that may not have confirmed their legal hold, as well as escalations. And again, no templated language. Really worried about my iterative process here. And the last section was custodians. I had to choose which custodians I wanted to add to my legal hold. Chris Germany is myself. I didn't add myself to this legal hold. There was 2 other custodians that were added. When we come out of here, you'll see these were the 2 custodians that we issued the legal hold to. One thing that really bothered me was that I couldn't actually issue my legal hold if I hadn't first added custodians to my case here in this section. So if I didn't have custodians in my case, I couldn't even move on to the communications portion. Felt that's a little counterintuitive as to legal team members coming directly in and beginning to issue their legal hold. Another thing you notice that's not available here is I want to go a level further and interview the custodians I'm reaching out to. It's great to be able to leverage technology to find out whether a custodian was involved in a matter or not, had relevant data or not, and where that relevant data may reside. But I didn't have that option inside of this legal hold communication system. And then finally, one thing that really bothered me is that the reporting leaves a lot to be desired. I want a legal hold defensibility report. I want something that tells me that on this time and on this date, I issued a legal hold to these custodians. The only thing we really had was a download communication report that doesn't really give any auditing activity inside of the report. So something really left to be desired as it related to legal hold communication system. Now let's walk through how we issue a legal hold to custodians from the Veritas eDiscovery platform. You can see here that I've logged into my tool, and I'll go ahead and select the case EDP versus Office 365. That'll bring me into my case home, tells me a little bit about my case, and I'm going to move over to the legal hold module. You'll see across the top that we try to follow that EDRM workflow inside of our cases. When we come into our legal hold, you'll see that we have a couple of legal holds that have already been issued, along with one that's remaining in the draft. The other thing you'll notice is that we have both a system admin notice and a custodian notice. When we looked through the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery platform, we saw that it only had a custodian notice, the ability to issue custodians. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't issue it to system administrators of data as well, but in the Veritas eDiscovery platform, we differentiate between a system admin, which is somebody who controls data inside of the corporate infrastructure, and a custodian notice, where we're actually issuing a legal hold directly to custodians. Let's go in and take a look at my custodian notice here. You'll see here the required field of name of the notice, EDPV Office 365 Custodian Notice 1. And then you can see we follow a very intuitive email format. In the email info, we have from to the CC subject line attachments and the body of the legal hold. Now, this is templated language that was already available to me here when I created my draft. I have templates that I can choose from here at the top. Now, different functions and different departments inside of a corporate infrastructure will have different templates that they use on a regular basis for legal hold. We allow you to be able to upload templates as well as save templates once you've crafted one, so you'll be able to leverage them at any time. This allows for an iterative, repeatable process of issuing legal holds to custodians. I've added my custodians here. When we go to add custodians, we have both case custodians, whom are custodians that have already been issued a legal hold inside of my case, or I'm able to leverage my employee list through Active Directory to add custodians. Now I come down to the confirmation page here. We'll see that we get to leverage technology to be able to ask survey questionnaires to custodians that'll be receiving this legal hold notice, asking how they were involved in the matter, where did they store the data that was relevant to the matter, and if there's any additional information that they want to share with us, can really be leveraged to allow for legal teams to really pin down where the data resides, where ESI will be located across their corporate infrastructure, and which custodians have relevant data. We have our confirmation page to allow for custodians to acknowledge that they're being placed on this legal hold. Once they check that box, they've confirmed. And then we have the ability to schedule the notice on what time and date it should be delivered, or whether it should be delivered now. We can add reminders so that custodians that may have forgotten to respond to the initial legal hold notice now have the ability to do that. And then we can also escalate to a manager if it's gone on too long and a custodian has not responded back to their legal hold notification. The other thing to point out here, we have our survey responses. we're able to see what the responses from some of these custodians in regards to our matters are already coming back. We have real-time answers on how much they've been involved, what type of documents, where they're placing those documents, and any other information they may want to share. This is, of course, exportable into a CSV format. So that it could be shared across with legal teams to discuss more on where we want to head with our case. And then the final thing I want to show is the defensibility of our process. Having this audit activity on what time and date custodians have received these legal hold notifications, when they've responded to these notifications, and if they've been released, we have the option to pull a defensibility report. And you can see here, our report is in a CSV format, and it's very detailed as to the details of the legal hold notice, what the current status of the custodians are that have been issued legal holds, and what's the total audit activity for each one of these custodians. So you can see here, by having that defensibility with an auditing report, by being able to leverage technology via survey questionnaires and responses to really narrow down where ESI will be located inside of the corporate structure, and then to be able to track which custodians have and have not responded to legal hold. We feel that the Veritas eDiscovery platform is a far superior legal hold notification system to the Microsoft Advanced eDiscovery solution.
Well, Earthan showed how EDP won round one. We saw that the templated language that was not really there for Office 365 Advanced Discovery, and how that was in EDP and was very extensive. The audit reporting was lacking, and EDP had a much better defensible report. The data mapping intelligence to survey, to go survey for custodians for ESI was there, and overall ease of use, it seemed to flow a lot better.